Oh, well, thanks for having us. We're very excited to be talking to you today about design spikes. So my name's Sarah Meikle. I'm a senior delivery producer at Australia Post, and I look after the small business segment. And the reason why I'm here to talk to you today is because at the end of last year, I was involved in a design spike on an emerging product, and I found it really fascinating, the whole process. So I wanted to talk to you about the insights and the learnings that I learned from that.
Cool. And my name's Lexi. I'm a design director at Australia Post, so I look after the My Post lodgements and small business areas. Yes, and I was involved in the process as well, which was really fun.
So the presentation that we're giving you today, the presentation that I'm giving you today is actually one that Lexi and one of the other design directors gave to the digital and innovation team. And it was great because it basically said to the team that whatever your stakeholders, if there's a specific problem that they have, there might be, you might basically handle that as a waterfall approach or an agile approach, or actually take on this design sprint thinking. So yeah, we got lots of insights from that. So what we're going to cover off today is what a design spike is. So for us, it was slightly different to the traditional design sprint in the sense that we had 8 days instead of 5, and we actually didn't include technology in the process. And also we're going to talk through what we tried at AusPost, which was, we got lots of learnings from, and then also our secrets of success through the process. So what is a design spike to us? So we got a group of people into a room and basically had a problem to solve. And it was a great way for us to also look at rapid vision creation of ideas within a short time frame and actually test that with customers.
So if you haven't been through the process before, this is the process that we followed. So it's the design sprint process essentially. So on day 1, you map out the problem, you unpack it, and you find an area of focus. On day 2, you're sketching and you're exploring loads and loads and loads of options. Day 3, you're really deciding and nutting out what to prototype. Day 4, you're doing the prototype. And then day 5, you're testing what you've prototyped. So within all of those well, in this presentation, we'll kind of take you through each of those areas and dig a bit deeper into kind of what really worked in each of those areas. And this is the lovely team that was involved. And you'll see a few Simpsons references in the presentation. So that's courtesy of Michael Barry, who's not here tonight.
I think the awesome thing as well about the team was that it was a range of different skills. So we had myself more of kind of like project management, as well as content research designers. So it was a good mix within the team.
Yeah, it was fun.
Cool. So our phase 1, looking at the mapping. So unpack the problem and find focus. So this was really critical for us, that we ensured that we that we ensured that we were very specific on what our problem was, because if we weren't, then we were going to get into trouble later down the track when we were actually prototyping and testing with customers. So this quote, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution. So I think that, you know, that just shows that it's really critical to hone in on exactly what your problem is. This just shows you a visual of the team. So we had a key stakeholder come in from the emerging product. I think it's actually on the screen.
Oh, no, it's cool.
A key stakeholder from the emerging product came in and gave us heaps of insights into any existing research that they've previously done and getting us up to speed on the domain, which was very critical for us to have that background knowledge, so that when we were looking at what our problem space was and actually going through the process of prototyping, we were very clear on what the product actually is.
And we also had some other researchers and people from the business come in during that day to really kind of unload on us all of the information that they had. So that was really fun.
So this is our customer journey map. So what we did here is we looked at who our actors were and our user types, and then basically mapped out our flow. And when we were doing that, we were asking ourselves the questions, have we actually considered every single actor or user type? And actually, have we looked at every single step in the flow? And then once we had actually mapped that out, we focused on a specific user type and one moment, because if we were focusing on the whole end-to-end journey, we probably would never have made it within our time frame, and it would have put the designers under a lot of pressure in what they were actually prototyping and testing. So it was critical for us to focus on that one specific moment.
And it's so hard to get this map at the right level, because it can be tempting to go like super, super deep, which you don't want. And you can also kind of do it at a too high level and try to conquer the world. So getting the map at this right level is really important. So we've had to doctor some of the slides just because they're internal. So that's why it's just generic, but there are actually like steps in here.
So once we had gone through that process, we then brainstormed what we actually wanted to learn from that. So we had our key actor, we had our moment, and what do we actually want to learn? And we wrote down a list of questions, and we took those questions through to our customer research testing. So we always referred back to those questions that we had set out at the start of the project.
Cool. So now it's kind of like the fun part. So once we really understood the domain, we found our focus. That meant that from there we could go super, super broad. So we explored loads and loads of options. And this kind of a fun quote. So if you want more success, you have to be prepared to shrug off more failure. So this is really all about throwing out loads and loads of designs. And I guess one thing at the start when we kind of set up the team was just making sure we had a really safe environment in which we could do this. So when it came to critique, that was, that was all good. So loads of people have seen this before, particularly a few people in the audience. So this kind of really just talks about really exploring the core idea. So not kind of just jumping straight to a solution, because if you do that, then you're fine from the wrong place. So, it's really, really important to do that. So to get there, what we did was we started with an inspiration scan. So we all had homework on Monday night. Not very fun if you're in a workplace, but we all did a bunch of research and brought some ideas in the next day to work. So we kind of all got jazzed up with lots of different ideas. Then we ran design studios. So for those people that don't know about these, we did like a 6-up, 1-up. So in a time-boxed space, you just throw out 6 really, really different ideas, and then you move that into a refined idea. And then this is us like in situ, really just sharing all of the sketches and concepts and ideas and giving critique against them back to the original design problem.
And now the hard part, actually designing what you're going to prototype, because I think when we went through the process, we had a range of awesome ideas that it was really hard for us to actually drill down what we were going to focus on, but it's really, really critical to do that. So deciding what to omit from a product is as important as figuring out what to include. So I guess for us, more is not necessarily more. So we really honed in on a specific idea, and that gave the product designers a lot of direction when they were looking at prototyping.
So this is a view of like kind of what that looked like, I guess. So we had all of our sketches up on the wall. We did dot voting on them. So we dot voted as a team. And then one thing that really helped us in this process was making sure that as people spoke about their design, we just put the key features up on sticky notes. So that meant that when it kind of came time to pull the prototype together, we could really just identify what those key features were.
And I think what was also good is that we had really engaged stakeholders, which really helps through the process. So our engaged stakeholders were basically involved in all of this decision making. So they were voting on the best ideas that they wanted us to prototype. So it wasn't a surprise when we presented what we actually put in front of customers at the end.
Cool. So, so this part, so we kind of start shifting the focus into this kind of exploration phase, and now we kind of need to get down to business to create a prototype that's going to be tested in a few days' time. So during this stage of the process, it was really important to kind of dedicate that time for flow. And lots of people have like been in this state of flow where you kind of just so focused on what you're doing and you're just, really happy and you know, it's just like a great place to be in, especially, you know, for me, from a design background, like I love being in that state of flow. Yep. Yeah, so this guy, Mackay Csikszentmihalyi, I can't say that name, he studied this. So he was 10 years old in 1945, so at the end of the World War II. And he was really curious, like post-war, what kind of conditions meant that people were really, really happy and engaged in their work. So he found that when you have a really great challenge that really matches your abilities, that kind of gets you into the state of flow, which is a great place to be. So kind of relating that back to the design sprint, we wanted to make sure that the challenge was right and set in the right way for the team, because otherwise they would have got too stressed. Like you start to get into that anxiety kind of area, because if we're trying to get them to solve the world, then they would have kind of, you know, that wouldn't have been a great place for them to be in. So it was really setting up that challenge to be really good for them. And another thing that we're really focused on was reducing context switching and limiting distractions. So making sure that they had time. And Sarah was amazing at this, because she kind of like acted as the like pew pew pew, like the what's that thing? Yeah, the defense shield. Yeah, for all of the stakeholders and people that wanted to interrupt the team. So she was really amazing at that in that stage. So then we created a prototype. So we managed to kind of bash this out, and the prototyping team managed to be able to really focus and nut down into this challenge and really create a really good prototype in a super short amount of time. And even more amazingly, they had some leftover time to do some quick vision work, which ended up on the board for the stakeholders. Yeah.
And I think that vision piece was awesome, because when we presented to the stakeholders, they were like, so you didn't just solve the problem and test that and give us customer insights. You've actually gone over and, above and beyond. And all these future vision ideas were stuff that they've actually got on their backlog of things that they're going to do with the emerging product.
But I guess this was a classic under-promise, over-deliver. So we just promised the prototype, and even kind of like a not even that great a prototype. So we just really made sure that the pressure was off the team in that way, and which allowed them to kind of do some really kick-ass work.
And then the testing. So for us, we looked at 3 audiences. So within the team, being able to give each other a lot of feedback around the ideas that we've generated, as well as stakeholder feedback. So I think I mentioned earlier that we've took the stakeholders along the journey and got them to give us feedback as we went through the process. And then testing with customers. So we had 8 customers that we tested with, and we got lots of insights from that. And I think the key for us was just being very open and curious, and taking lots of insights from what they were telling us. So by asking the why, you can see the opportunity for something better beyond the bounds of the current best. So I'm sure lots of you have done customer research before, and I think the key for us is always asking the why. So a lot of customers will say, I love that feature, or I don't like that feature, but being really inquisitive and asking the why will help you optimize as you move forward. And that's just, be curious. It's about learning, not about being right.
Yeah, so I guess that was something we really set up at the start with the sprint. It was like, this is a big learning activity for us and the team. So that's a theme that we had throughout.
And that's just showing you us listening in on the customer and taking heaps of notes.
Cool. Yep. Anyway, thanks Baz for that one. So that's really just to sum that up. It's about being very curious and using these opportunities as learning, not about so much validating. Cool. So to summarize, this is the process that we went through. So it was a pretty standard design sprint process, but as Sarah mentioned at the start, we did have a couple of days extra. So we started by mapping, which was really getting all of those stakeholders into the room, unpacking the problem, and then finding those focus areas. We then sketched, so we explored the problem space to kind of really kind of nut through a whole bunch of ideas. We decided what to focus on, which then allowed us to prototype really, really quickly because we had set all of that up. And then having testing there to be able to get feedback from our customers. And I guess some bonus things were like having a team with mixed skills and from really different areas of the business. So none of us had worked together before. But that was really great. We had engaged stakeholders, so we did a bit of work beforehand, kind of prepping the stakeholders so they kind of knew what to expect during the process. The facilitation was amazing. So it started with a really good kickoff, setting the scene, creating that safe environment, being really organised. So all the meetings were booked in, the research was booked in, all of that kind of stuff, really well structured. And then keeping on track. So we made sure we just decided and then went. So we didn't kind of deliberate too much, like those 70–80% decisions are totally fine. And if you haven't used Juco before, that's a free app that you can download, which has this kind of design sprint process in it. So you can just kind of use that as a guide, which is quite good. So yeah, thanks. So that's us.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. We'll take a few questions if anyone has any questions for Lexi and Sarah. Sunil, hang on, we'll grab a mic for you. It's on, it's on.
What? That is so cool. How does it work?
Hello. Thanks. Do you want to ask it? No. Thanks. Yeah, great presentation. A couple of things. Just interested in who sponsored the sprint, first of all, and what have they done since with the outcomes of the sprint?
So in terms of who sponsored the sprint, so obviously it's something that we work in the digital and innovation team. So it's obviously something that we have advertised amongst key stakeholders within the business. But the emerging product stakeholders had a specific problem that they knew they wanted to get solved, and they knew about the design spike process. So they came to us and we were like, well, we'll put up a team. You got 8 days. This is how much it's going to cost. Do you want us to go ahead? And they said yes. Yep. And sorry, what was the second part of your question?
And what have they done since with your insights?
Yep. So actually off the back of this, we had a product designer that was heavily involved in the prototyping, and they actually asked for her to be seconded into the team after this and actually help them with the roadmap. So she did that for about a week after the design spike, and they've now got a backlog of work that they're looking at actually getting into production, because obviously for us, we didn't get technology involved. So we had a lot of experts give us advice around the domain, but we were very focused on the customer experience, and then hopefully they'll figure out the technology later. So I guess as part of their backlog, they'll be doing a lot of that investigation.
Thank you. Awesome, thank you. Any other questions?
I have one. We'll try the mic out. Did you find you had to be very disciplined about which steps occurred on which days? Was it hard to keep the process from bleeding across days?
So your short answer is yes. Keeping it really focused and time box was a super important part of getting it, done in the time allotted. And it is really easy to stay in that concepting phase, especially because it's like really fun and, and you can explore a lot, but it really was important to get down to nut out the kind of final ideas to then be able to prototype them. But yeah, no, the kind of the discipline is really important in that process. Yeah.
I think also, sorry, what we also did on that was we actually set up the structure for each day the day before. So we had that structure, we sent that out to the whole team, say, right, tomorrow this is what we're going to be doing. And then I booked in all the key stakeholder meetings so that it was almost like we've got 2 hours to design some stuff, but the key stakeholders coming in within 2 hours. So we need to have it finished. And I think that's also what kept everyone on track.
Yeah, cool. Any other questions? Up the back there.
I might carry it to you.
My question is, what was Thursday night like? Was it like a really frantic, we have to get this done kind of deal? And did that requirement of having something in front of a customer on Friday affect the quality of what you were designing earlier in the week?
Yeah, so our time frame differed slightly. So we ended up doing it oddly the week before Christmas. So we had a 2-week break off over Christmas. So 4 days leading up to Christmas, and then the 4 days back from Christmas break. So it was quite an interesting thing, but it wasn't it was frantic-ish, but not too frantic because we had spent a lot of time getting all that focused work done at the start. Like the setup is crucial. Like if you don't kind of get the map and the focus nailed, then all of the rest of it can kind of fall apart really easily because you start double checking yourself back at those earlier stages of the process. So you really kind of need to just keep pushing that. And we did make sure that the kind of expectations for prototyping were really clear and they matched the script that we were going into interviews with. So we didn't kind of over prototype anything. Like we made sure that everything was super relevant to the prototype. And then we were all pretty frazzled by the end of the week leading into Christmas. And then when we got back, we were kind of like, where are we? And then we picked it back up again, which was fine. Yeah.
Cool. I think we had another question down the line there.
Hey, on? Yep. Yeah, so you said you focused on one point of the project or one of the user. What about the rest of it when you're doing that?
It was a really difficult thing actually, because coming from working on traditional projects where you're thinking about the whole process end to end, but the reason why we focus just on that one moment and that one user type is because we wouldn't have enough time to focus on the whole thing. We were very honest with the stakeholders up front and said, actually, there's a lot of thinking that needs to happen before you get into this phase of what we've actually prototyped. So we hadn't actually investigated how do you advertise to get customers to this app, how do you get them to download and do some work before they actually engage with the app. So that work still needed to be done, and we were just transparent with that up front with the stakeholder.
And I guess to add to that, like when you're trying to prioritize what moment and customer you're really focusing on, it's about what's going to be the deal breaker in this whole system. Like if we don't get this moment right and really nailed, what's going to make the whole thing fall apart? So that kind of helped us really focus on what to prototype and what to focus on. Good question.
Awesome. Over here, Alistair. I'll come over with this mic.
I had a quick one. How often do you think on an annual basis, how often within 12 months should you be doing these 5-day sprints?
Cool. Well, I guess, thanks, Al. Well, I guess it's just trying to find the balance between discovery and delivery. So like, what are you kind of, what does this allow you to find out compared to what you can deliver and achieve as a team? We're aiming to get these done like about every 6 months because they're fun. They get a team together. You get to explore a really interesting problem space. And they're just like a really great kind of creative moment for the business. So we're aiming to try to get them in on about 6 monthly basis, but annually so far. But yeah, more we'd like to do.
I think also what's awesome about it, personally for me, coming from an advertising background, it was awesome to be able to do something really quickly in a organization that's really large and quite political and quite slow. So I think if you've got a problem that you want to solve, Design Spikes is an awesome way to do that because it just gets the team moving a lot quicker.
Awesome. All right. Well, we might leave it there. Thanks, Lexi and Sarah, for that awesome talk.